The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the host/guest and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any of BXR entities and those they represent.
What's up, everybody? This is your host, Nate. I'm here today, by the grace of God. Bleu will be joining us shortly. Mr. Holicious. Um, I'm looking down because I'm adding people to the broadcast, but I also realized that at the bottom of the screen, if you're watching us on Facebook, or I think on Facebook, you can now add stars. You can buy stars. So do that. So my paycheck will get bigger here at Big Exposed Radio. And of course, the donation button is at the top of the screen. I believe it is. It's not. It'll flash at the bottom shortly, I believe. Click on Audible so we can get that dough, so I can become a rich, wealthy podcaster. Um, but yes, I am here. This week has been challenging. It has been an adventure. I've grown in some ways, and I have learned some lessons. Even in your adulthood, you are still learning valuable lessons. And I'm appreciative of the people around me, good and bad, because the bad, you learn just as much of a lesson as in the good. Um, and I say grateful a lot, but I'm satisfied. I'm not where I project myself to be, but I'm definitely in line and surrounded by people. I've really learned the lesson. This pandemic taught me how to pick people to be in your space. You choose who you want, and you set boundaries, and you allow um, some things you just have to go through. Some things you just have to see for yourself. Some things you have to just stand the test of time. Like everything you can't run away from, everything you can't just change your scenery. Some things you gotta grit and bear it. And others, get the hell out of there. Get them the hell out of there. You remove yourself, you remove them. Um, but it's a balance. And what I'm learning in life is when to do those things. Um, and what I want. And I don't have to feel stuck or obligated to anybody or anything simply because we have a certain type of relationship. Speaking of relationships, today's topic is dealing with mental health in our relationships, whether they be romantic relationships, work relationships, friendships, um, self, just dealing with your children, all across your animals, whatever that may be. Hey, Noah, we're talking about, you want to join us? You have time to join us, Noah? I'm going to see if Noah got time to join us. I've been having little conversations with a lot of friends, and it feels like we're all in the same space. Before I go any further, I do have um, to send some love out to my friend Kyle. Uh, Kyle has been one of the guests that's been on. I think he's been the guest that's been on my show more times than any friend, family, or stranger that I know. But Kyle lost his mom a few days ago, and it's just like a grandmother. It's something, and him and his mother were very close. So I send my heart out to the Jackson family. Um, and Kyle's from New Orleans, so death is definitely a celebration. It's not a sorrowful time. But I know my friend, the cancer, is going through it right now, and I just send him my love. Um, and you never know what to say. I'm a person who I always have something to say or something inspirational to add to something when my friends and family are going through things. But death is is not for human consumption, and depending on the person will determine how they deal with it, and that's fine. That's all great and fine. I don't try to um change that. Oh, look at that! People watching, Mr. Khalil, Mr. I'm trying to find the link. I'm gonna send it to both of you all. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to send my heart and my love out to Kyle and his family. Um, and I'm sure Kyle will find a creative space to get through this. And I'm really happy. Um, and I didn't mean to say happy, but I am happy um, just for friendship, for love, for people showing you who they really are. But we're going to talk today a lot about dealing with not just mental disorders or mental stress, but just dealing with trauma or struggles when it comes to friendships. Because, like I was just speaking about my friend Kyle is he's a cancer, he's a true blue cancer, and he's very emotional and passionate about life and situations he finds himself in. And you never know I don't know what to say to someone who lives in that space of emotion, and not speaking bad about my friend at all, but I don't deal well with like sad or heightened emotions. I don't know what to do. Like if I see somebody crying, I'm just gonna sit there with them. I don't, I'm gonna be there with them. If they ask me something or ask my opinion, I'm gonna answer it honestly. But I typically don't know what to do. And I've been like that from a child. My mother, again, another cancer, could cry and just cry and cry. And I think I learned it from a young age just to sit there and be patient. And then when it feels like their tears are starting to subside, then to interject with some type of question or comforting words of some sort. But I'm learning as I get older how to be there in the moment with my people that I'm surrounded by, not just friends and family, but just people in general. Because I work with children, and sometimes children are sad um, or angry or upset, and you have to learn how to manage that in the moment. So I'm learning by learning it with children, I'm learning how to do it with adults as well. So Blue Waters is in the building.
Hello, hello, hello.
He got his bamboo earrings on again. Do they say blue?
No, these don't. These are just old school 1990s, you know, bamboo, banji girl
Where
earrings.
did you get the ones with blue in them?
I do have the ones with blue, but I wore them the last time. So I was like, I'm going to take it
Okay.
back. But yeah, of course. I'm
Where did
stuck in
you
an
get them?
era. I'm stuck between the 70s and the 90s. I haven't gone into the 2000s yet. So I'm stuck.
And he is literally sitting on a leather couch, um, and he knows quite a few drug dealers. So that's
Yes,
just
I do. Yes, I do. I know how to get around in the neighborhood. I can go from stage and sage and incense to Newport's blunt and
In the 40s.
the 45.
Not a Coke 45.
Yes, Coke
But
45.
yes, but I am utilizing the time that I have with Blue because I know at some point he's going to get distracted with his reflection in the mirror, and we're not going to see him for a while. But I'm
No,
going to utilize
no,
as
no.
much.
I'm committed. I'm the only times I will be absent is if I have a performance someplace, which you do know, and so I'm
But that's what
allowed
I'm
to have.
saying. You become in this
But that's not
world-renowned
all the time.
performer.
That's
I'm
not
just
all the
saying.
time. I swear.
I'm just saying, like she's starring in shows back to back to back to back, being requested to do
No,
things now.
I look. I get in where I fit in. That's all. If they ask me to do something, I'm gonna throw on a little
No,
pump or
no,
two.
no, no. See, I am unofficially Blue's manager, and I'm helping him with his verbiage. When
Unofficially,
they are
it's
offering to pay
official.
you, when they're offering to pay you for something, then you get in where you fit in.
Okay, yeah, that is definitely see. That's why you have the job that you have. You know what I'm saying?
I'm learning, and I'm
And it's a
teaching as
good
I
thing
learn.
because I see it as, because I'm like a big auntie to you and, I'm a mentor, I'm a big auntie to you. So I'm able to take you under my wing and, show you the old school ropes so that you don't get out here and, be bust upside your head or anything. But I like to put you in a position where you can work with me too so you can use your talents. See, that's me paying forward. I give back to you.
That sounds like some brothel type of stuff. I'm good. I'll watch from afar. We have some people listening. We got Noah.
Hi.
We got Khalil. And Khalil was somebody I want you to meet too. You were supposed to meet him at the community conversations, but it didn't work that way. But it's cool. It's cool. It's still time. It's still time. Space and opportunity.
So
Speaking of,
hopefully with the up and coming one, I hope to meet
yeah.
everybody there.
So we're gonna have so I'm gonna have the details for that very soon. Troy is always jet setting, so he's off with Mesa on another adventure to sell that new album. Well, I think this is a shorter project. What do you call a shorter project?
What's it? LP,
It's like
EP?
a full album. An
Yeah,
EP, an LP. Is it an LP?
I want to say EP, LP, something like
A
that.
smaller project. But they're going out and she's always on tour and he's the road manager. So get them, get that dough, get that money, get to the bag. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it's going to lead into why this is so significant for me, the topic today. So was it last year? Last year sometime, like around the summertime or spring, I had made a list of people who I wanted to, one, connect with on a deeper level, build with, work with, or just communicate more with. And I started with this list of individuals. And for whatever reason, I just started checking people off. And it wasn't necessarily I didn't like anybody or they wasn't going to fit, but it was more so I wanted the right energy to align. And I really just, prayed on it and it whittled down to three people. Blue Waters, BDM, and Corey Burton. And these were three individuals who I had either worked with or I wanted to work with, or I've learned who they were. And I've known Troy forever. He's always been a staple in the theater community, the arts community. Blue, I had met him at Coppin, and then Bree ignited by bullying him every time I saw him on the streets. And BDM, I actually met BDM at a like some type of festival or something. I don't know what that was, Monty, where you introduced me to him. And I knew who he was, but I never had met him. So Monty introduced me to BDM a number of years ago. We was doing something at
It was
City Hall.
Pride. It was Pride.
That was Pride?
It was Pride.
Was
we was at Pride. I think that was like
Pride.
2013 Pride.
Yes,
No,
it was
first of all,
Pride.
because I would never go to a pride. But
You were there.
That was the only one you went with me because we would pay. Remember, it was me, you, and Sharon, and we were all passing out Big Exposed radio cards
You were there.
right at the
I just
Artscape
remember us
section.
being in front of City Hall. That's all I remember.
It was at the Artscape section because he was supposed to perform.
No, it was before then. You had introduced me to him before then. It was something we were doing something that it was some type of rally at City Hall. And remember we was eating that pizza and I shouldn't have ate that pizza because it was just sitting out there.
I remember. Why am I remembering Pride though? That's crazy. I don't go there.
But I do remember, you know what, now I do remember that because we were, yes, we were passing out flyers for a couple of years in a row. But yes, so these group of men, I got them together and we are loosely, because we've kind of, we're in our own realm at the moment and we'll soon be getting back together for something special. I have a big surprise for these fellas. And I am kind of plan for that. So
Really?
right. So I'm not gonna put out the details yet, but just know we're looking for sponsorship. We're looking for sponsorship. We're looking for, businesses that want to promote themselves. So that's how I'm trying to build it out for you all. But we're looking for grants, all that. So if y'all know any, just send them my way. But this group is specifically for Black men, not limited to any specific genre of Black men, but Black men who just want to be around like-minded people who want to heal, who want to grow. If you saw the press kit for, see, Sharon, I'll be listening. The press kit for the You Thought I Was Him project, you see some snippets of all of them speaking on various topics that were brought up. A lot of the stuff we cannot show you, we cannot let you hear because it was created as a safe space. For all of us that were a part of this. And it would be very unbeneficial to kind of share that and break that trust and break that. But today's topic is kind of a stepping stone out of that because recently I've been having relationships with people that not recently, but just over time, relationships that wasn't really strengthened by a strong foundation. Because for me, a lot of my friendships were unspoken bonds, and I'm just starting to set boundaries and ask of people to set those boundaries as well. Because I just want people to be their full self, and I've had that issue, and me and Bleu have talked about that a lot. I've had that issue with me not fully showing up as myself and then being in relationships with people where they were not fully showing up as themselves. And we both were dealing with things from the other that we necessarily didn't want to deal with. I'm not, a lot of my friendships fizzle out because I'm not the go out person. I'm not the turn up. I'm the person that you want to chill with or maybe take a vacation with or, just do something creative with. And I have my boundaries and my limits of things that I want to do. And sometimes I remember losing a lot of friends when I decided I didn't want to go out anymore. It's just not my environment. Having all that is noise to me. But today's topic is dealing with mental struggles, I'll say mental struggles, and trauma within our relationships. Has this ever been a problem for you, Bleu?
Absolutely. And to go back to this, to circle back to what you were saying about not being the one to go out. That was then. This is now. As Auntie has stepped in and has swooped you under my wing. And
But
I'm
even when I'm not saying I don't never want to go out, but even when I go out, I'm not. That's just not my personality. I'm not a turn up kid. I've never been.
And that's cool. You are yourself, and that's what is important. You don't have to be that type of person, to be a social person. And you are who you are, and people should accept you for who you are. They shouldn't try to recreate you. They should appreciate you as you show up. So that's what I do appreciate about you. But you my roadie when I want you to be my roadie.
Not when you want me to be, when I choose to be your roadie. Let's say it like that. Because
Say
we're
it
not
again.
forcing, we're not controlling anybody, sir. But I do, and all jokes aside, friendships like I'm building with Blue are, I chose that. I purposely chose those types of people to be friends with, not because I needed them to help me pull me out of some place, but more so I do want to be more social. For me, it was more comfortable for me to be like right now, I'm in my studio. I have been more comfortable working in my art than I was developing friendships. And as you get older, you realize those things matter more than collecting a paycheck. Now, I still want my money, but I value time. And I'm the person that will sit and I may get involved or be a part of the conversation, but I'm a spectator. I'm gonna sit there and watch. Or I love people watching. So that's my turn up. I'm having fun just sitting there sipping on my lemonade or my cranberry juice.
And that's the part that I like about you because you're a good, you're a good sidekick. Sip your lemonade.
First of
Don't
all, this nigga stay wanting a sidekick.
You are my sidekick,
I don't do
and I
no
want you to
oohs
be
and
okay
ahs.
with that.
I'm not a oohs and ahs type of person. So let's
You
get back to it.
you asked me about have I experienced trauma in my
Mhm.
relationship?
Well, no, have you had to deal with so having friendships, even if it was you that may have gone through some things, how do we deal with it? So my overall question for today and for the audience, how have you dealt with struggles and traumas in your friends and family lives? Like it was hard watching Blue lose his mom because that was when we were really starting to like hang out. He had started doing this show at the station. So that was the first time that he had to take a break. And that was a longer break for Blue. And I'm not used to seeing him in an emotional space. Not that you were outwardly emotional, but I knew that was something that was, watching a loved one, transition is not easy. And it was kind of stretched out moment for him. So watching that, you never know what to say, you never know what to do, because you don't want to be disrespectful or pushy, or you don't want to just be so normal that you are disregarding what's going on with a person. But it's a balance. So have you ever been in those types of situations with other people?
Absolutely. I think
Mm-hmm.
that that a lot of times people show up and they show up in different ways.
Right.
That me personally, it was hard for me to develop close relationships. It's actually recently, like in my mid adult, like late adulthood, that I actually started really forming really close bonds with individuals because I had issues with trust. But that's not uncommon. Many people have experienced a lot of traumatic events in their life, and it makes it difficult for them to build a solid foundation in friendship. You know, because we don't like to be naked and around each other. We have
Right.
issues, insecurities. And so I had my insecurities, and I'm quite sure individuals that I was dealing with had their insecurities. And so I had to, for me, it is dealing with me first. It took a long time for me to be okay with dealing with me first. And for me, that means getting naked with myself and then staring at myself in the mirror and really saying, appreciating all the things that I see, the flaws and everything else. Now there are limited flaws because I am almost flawless. I'm the closest to perfection there is. But
Okay. See, I let people have not delusions, but their ideals.
no,
I
but
like that.
I say that to say that I had to really start to appreciate me, even the persona that I take on as Blue.
Mhm.
That was something that I developed because that was kind of that's like a love story to myself, that this is who I am and I should love me as I am. And if individuals outside of me can accept me for who I am, that's their issue, not mine. And so I don't
Mm.
take on no one else's stuff. But am I going to show up to ride through the storms with you? Absolutely. But you have to do the
Right.
work yourself. So I may be, as a friend, I may say, I may be able to identify some things that you may have to develop, areas of development for you, that you may be
Mhm.
struggling with, but I'm not going to do the work for you. You're going to do the work. And the way that I show up is I'm not trying to recreate you. I don't want to recreate anybody that I'm getting to know. I want them to be their authentic self and be
Right.
okay with that. And I think the biggest lie that we've in society and the world is that we like the truth, that we want honesty. To me, that's a big lie. I think people have gotten acclimated to saying they like the truth, but when they see the truth, when they hear the truth, they don't know how to
Mhm.
receive it. And so,
Right.
um, for me, it is learning how to receive the truth, being okay with the truth, even if it's something that makes me uncomfortable, I may not necessarily agree with all the time. I recognize that this is someone else's interpretation of me and it's valid. That this is how they see me. So there is some validity
But
to
see,
it.
before you go
Um,
any further, that's what people who are given that truth have to be aware of and accepting of. This is how I see things. This is through my eyes. Because that person may not see things their way, and that's fine.
right,
And like you said, your opinion of me is as valid as my opinion of myself.
right,
But I cannot put more weight on what you think of me than what I think of me. Because
absolutely,
again, you have a very limited perception of me because you're not me.
right.
And so but I thought that was a very, and because you said that before, but it is very interesting to hear it out loud because we live in a world right now where what I think of you is the fact. We see it on social media, we see it in social commentary, we see it in podcasts and radio and journalism. What I see from you is the truth. And we typically have one third of the truth or understanding.
If
And
that
that's
much,
not the whole thing. It's that much.
right, absolutely. And so, I mean, and being a gay black male, I
I
think
didn't
that
even know
being,
that.
you know what? I didn't know it until yesterday. I was
I wouldn't
walking
even
down the
thought that.
street. No, let me tell you, I was at work and my supervisor came up to me and was like, you're gay. And I was like, really?
Oh
And
wow.
I was like, oh my goodness.
What led you to believe that,
I
sir?
did not know that. So yeah, I think the most
This
difficult thing has
explains
been
a lot. This explains
to
a lot. It's
explain
going to lift a big
everything.
load off of my chest.
This is why I love going to gyms. This is why I'm drawn to, I thought that this is why my fantasy, my job, let me tell you, when I was in school, high school, and I went to the guidance counselor and they asked me what did I want to be when I grew up, I was like a towel boy for like the NFL. And they didn't know that I wanted to be a towel boy. I just wanted to hand out towels in the locker room as they would
And from
change.
that point on, Blue was no longer allowed to play on any of the sports teams. That's why
Oh, I
he
was never
developed his
playing. I was,
ability.
I was never playing. I was never playing. Then in the cheerleading section, yes, but I was never playing.
His face was on the door of every sports facility. Do not enter. Sorry, go directly to the.
I was always the manager. I was the manager. I was managing things.
Ain't lift a finger. Ain't know nothing about sports management, but it's cool.
But
But
yeah, I think the
we were
hardest thing
talking
has
about.
been to
Mhm,
establish and maintain relationships with other men. I
mhm.
find that I develop deeper relationships with females. Believe it or not, it's difficult for me to establish and maintain intimate relationships with men because of a lot of their trauma,
Oh,
the
he
trauma
said
that they've
he gonna be
experienced.
making promos. He gonna clip them clips.
So,
But what you're saying goes in a space of and in our conversations, I've said that a lot, and I've said it so much that I had to then say, Nate, why is that a thing? And it's a question that to the people listening, do you have an issue with your male relationships versus your female relationships or vice versa? But that's an interesting thing because a lot of black men I've heard say that. Just
I
like
think
I've
that
heard a lot of black women say I don't get along with women too well. I get along with men more than I get along with women.
I think when for the reason why my relationships with females are deeper, it doesn't always start out that way. It winds up being that way when they don't see me as a threat. So when it's not like, okay, I'm
Ooh.
competition, I'm trying to come in and, take their man or I have to establish that I'm not going to be the gay radar for them. So every man that comes into our vicinity, they can't look at me and say, is he gay? Because that's not what I'm going to do.
But you
And
know what
so
I'm starting to see recently? I'm starting to see more men force themselves to be in, not necessarily in the spaces with people who they normally keep at a distance in terms of other men, but I see them making, not all, but a few men, especially the ones that I know, make a bigger concerted effort to at least speak or be kind to or communicate with. Whereas though before that was such an uncomfortable thing to do, no matter what your sexual preference or orientation or identity was. It was just, I used to see it as an uncomfortable thing for men in general to be in spaces together and not feel uncomfortable.
And I think that for the males that I've developed close relationships with, I find that those that are truly comfortable in their skin are the most comfortable with me.
Right.
That they themselves don't see what I do as a reflection of them. They just say, okay,
Mm.
you are you and I am me. And we may actually have wonderful relationship with one another, but um, that doesn't state that, or it's not a statement saying that they themselves are gay or that they're attracted to me outside of friendship, just a platonic relationship. And so,
Mm.
and I have say about a good number of really close male friends that aren't threatened by my presence. Yeah, I know that their friends struggled with our friendship because they didn't understand it. But
Mm.
as time progressed, they started to realize that it wasn't, that there wasn't anything there outside of it was just you guys chilling with each other. I just happen to like men, and they don't.
But it's and that's something, and I definitely want to have that conversation too. I don't want to dig too deep into what that is and why um, even speaking to or being around or being comfortable around automatically makes you must be. So I definitely want to package that up and put that into another conversation because I think that's a whole nother animal in and of itself. But dealing with the struggles of others can really strain a relationship. Um, and some of the big ones are like if you have certain vices like alcoholism or drug abuse or something, something like that. That's a obvious. I think that's something that we obviously know can strain a relationship in some way, many
I
ways.
think that that's partly because when people enter relationships, they don't really understand what a relationship entails. And so I think that a lot of communication has to happen, even in friendships. You have to really be open to um, talking, and getting to know one another on a deeper level. And I think that because we're afraid to get intimate, because that requires you to be able to swim in the deep end of the pool. And many people don't really feel comfortable. Many people can't swim in that end of the pool. And that's the problem. No one knows how to navigate the deep end. And so when you really have conversation with one another and you get to understand, then it becomes you learn the individual and you're not trying to control them. You're not trying to recreate them to fit you. You now appreciate them for their uniqueness and you accept them for who they are, as they are, and you may point out there may be areas of development, but that's the purpose of the relationship is to strengthen one another. So it's like, okay, I can see that, oh, you may have an issue with social interactions, and that's okay. You may not be okay in every social environment, but that doesn't mean that I won't take you to environments where you have to socially engage, or that doesn't mean that I'm going to try to make you do things that make you uncomfortable. No, I may expose you to some things, but I still have to accept you as you are. And
Mm-hmm.
our like in relationships, I see this a lot. People they try to recreate them, they try to change them, and that's where it
Mm-hmm.
starts to break down. No, if this is who I am, and if you don't like who I am, then maybe we shouldn't be friends. Maybe we shouldn't be
Yeah.
in a relationship, because
It's
I'm not trying to,
control.
I think
That's
it's
people trying to
unfair.
control you.
I think that's very unfair. That
Yeah.
and we may say, well, what if the person is doing this? And we lead with our opinions, but we really don't have any understanding of the individual that's before us. So it's like you really got to get to know people first and truly accept them for who they are, and not try to change them. Mm-mm.
And that's and see in many of my relationships, and I contributed to me always feeling I had to like, that really tall friend that feel like they gotta stoop down to kind of balance out the other friend. And I would do that mentally in relationships, friendships mainly. And whether it be I didn't want to get teased by my family for learning new $15 words, or so I would not use them. So I think I was stunting my education by not applying what the things that I was learning into my real life as we naturally do. But I began to be very aware and borderline subconscious of my intelligence, of my creativity, of my presence in a room. I know I can walk in a room and people pay attention to me. I'm not the person that people are all unnecessarily always physically drawn to, but I'm the person
Really,
who want to. I mean, but I know that, but it's a reason. Like I normally get the trickling effect. Like who is this person? Let me talk to this person. He seems like he's a little odd, and I know I give off of that, but give that off. But again, I had to learn how to show up as my most authentic self. That means the way I speak, the way I talk, the way I present myself, and I always did not want to outshine people. So I would kind of bring it back some. But that begins to create boundary issues in my relationships because then that's how they're going to treat you. So when you do say, you know what, enough is enough, I have to be my complete self. They don't know who the hell that person is.
but
So
that's
then,
because we never show up as our authentic. We send our
right,
representative, and that to
yep,
me that's really misleading.
yeah,
And you see that, and when you are dating someone, this generation really does not really. They don't court. I'm old school, believe it or not, old fashioned. I believe in taking my time, getting to know
mm-hmm,
someone. I'm not like wham bam. Let me just jump out there. Hold on, hold on. There is a
mm-hmm.
delivery. Hold on,
But
y'all.
a lot of these, a lot of what I'm speaking about are experiences that I have, and it's okay to feel a certain way. It's okay to, develop certain quirks about yourself. It's okay. But one thing that's not okay is if you feel like you can't be who you are. And that moment that you have to start questioning that around people is the moment where you have to one check yourself, and the other space you have to find. Sometimes you have to find because sometimes it is you. Sometimes it's not you. And it's your body and your mind, reacting to the environment that it's in. And you have to find ways to um, be who you are. And sometimes that means leaving a friendship or leaving a workplace environment or leaving something that you love, like a marriage. We see this as a season. So many couples, celebrity couples, are getting divorced because people are really figuring out, I don't have to be here, or I don't want this. And that's okay. Like it's
And,
okay to make a mistake in life.
and I think that's partly because we don't take out we rush. instead of actually taking time to really get to know people. Also, being willing, I think that we have all of these standards to relationships, and relationship is about growth. You got to be
Yeah.
willing to work with one another. It's two entities coming together to build a unit, a union with one another. But that doesn't mean that they lose their individuality. That doesn't mean that they lose who they are in the process of building this relationship. So it's those things that I think a lot of individuals do not take into consideration when they get into relationships. I don't In a relationship, you're not supposed to, in my opinion, and it's just as my way, you're not supposed to try to change the individual from who they are. You're supposed to help them evolve into a better
Embrace the
form of
thing.
themselves. So it's
Right.
like, so their foundation is who they are. But as they get
Right.
older, as you grow old and grow with one another, you evolve, and you got to be willing to do that. But the thing is that you have to be okay with understanding that you may evolve apart. So you
Mm-hmm.
may grow apart. That is a reality. But on the flip
Yeah.
side, you have to put that much energy and nurturing to see whether or not to foster growing together. Like, if you're nurturing the relationship, if you are communicating, if you are being considerate, if you're being intimate, if you're paying attention, then chances are your relationship it'll be strong.
And not only that, but also trying to figure out um, how we can develop as individuals and as a group. Because sometimes the things that I've gone through in terms of growth, it it separated me from people, and understanding that there's a time for you to grow as an individual, and then there's a time for you to grow as a group. And everything doesn't mean necessarily, oh, I got to leave these people alone. New levels, new faces, new friends, and that's not what it is. Because you'll continuously, if that's the cycle that you're gonna perpetuate, you're gonna continue to lose people, and everybody's not meant to be tossed to the side. But there are moments where I feel like I have to grow alone,
Right.
and grow as an individual. And I think we are so hell bent on, and what you were saying, like a counterpoint to what you were saying, that happens when people themselves don't know who they are. So it's easier for me to control your narrative and what your box is. So I look like I'm more in control of my space and my territory. And it's really a thing of, you don't even know who you are on your own, but you're trying to control the narrative of who somebody else is supposed to be.
And that is, so for me, that is something that I'm always self-conscious of. And what is my intention? And so
Mhm.
for in my friendships, when I am building a rapport with individuals, I like them to be themselves. As a matter of fact, in my romantic relationships, I always lead with show me the ugly first. Because for me, I want to see the part that I may have to struggle with as opposed to the representative. So show me the ugly first. Show me the stuff that you wouldn't show anyone else. Because those are the things that I need to see. Because at that point, then I am making a choice whether I am willing to move forward with building that relationship. So,
Right.
a lot of times I want to hear the ugly. I don't want to hear about, I don't want to see the makeup. I don't want to see the nice outfits or anything. No, show me how you look when you wake up in the morning and you don't have any of that shit on. Be yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as time progresses, that's the person that you're going to see.
And that's
That's
that's very that's a very truthful statement. And I think the people who surround us, those individuals who give us love and support us, they have to be open to that change. Because I remember, I tell a story about the first time I ever was broke, and I had a decision to make. Like, do I? Because it wasn't about me just telling people. I don't have that energy in me that, like, I gotta tell somebody. But I couldn't afford to take the vacation that I was taking just a few months ago. I could not, afford to pay for everybody when we're at dinner. I couldn't afford to, help people out if they was having bill problems or things of that nature. And I remember saying it to friends, and I stopped getting calls from those people. And I learned years later. I learned that we're in a space for people where don't bring me no bad vibes. I don't want no bad vibes around me. And that's really what your friend or your family member or your loved one is going through. That doesn't mean that you need to um, save them. Like you said, I can show you or guide you, but I can't do it for you. I remember being in church. That same time I was in church and we had like an after service meeting, and the pastor said, somebody in here is really going through it. I feel it in the air. And, you know, before I could even control myself, I just, lifted my hands and told my testimony in that moment. And how everybody after that service reacted to me showed me who they really were. And I had people who really came up and gave me some really good words of comfort and guidance and wisdom. And then I had other people who prefaced anything that they were about to say to me with, well, I ain't got no money. And I was like, I didn't ask anybody for anything, but when you hold it in a lot, it weighs you down. And I didn't know it could manifest itself in your personality and the way you present your face and the way that your personality changes or alters itself. But it growing has really shown me in many negative ways how not to share. And I think that is the most unbeneficial thing in relationships and friendships than anything else, and anything that we could do to each other. Not communicating, because then things go unsaid. So when things happen, how do we fix this? Or how do we get back from this? And there's no way to do this but separate. That's why people often go to divorce before they go to a therapist or some type
Right.
of counselor, because they
Um,
don't have a foundation built on, if something happens, this is what it is. Like, they don't have a business plan for their relationship. And I think that is something that I think therapy wise, I think needs to start being addressed, especially when you have couples therapy or family therapy or just therapy for an individual. What is your lesson plan? What is your business plan for your relationship? You got it for your businesses and your hobbies, but what is your business plan for your relationship? And the
I
business
think
plan
that
is nothing more than what when things happen, I have this document to go to tell me where we're supposed to be.
mm,
But we don't do
I,
that in relationships.
I think that with a lot of relationships and a lot of individuals, that one with therapy, think that people have they they misunderstand the intentions of therapy. Think that
Mm,
they go to therapy with the idea that it's going to fix. The
right.
therapist is supposed to fix them. No, the therapist is supposed to assist you with fixing yourself by helping you identify those areas of development that needs to be addressed. So what happens is that when you're in the midst of the storm, you may not see a lot of things because you're in the midst of it. When you're going through a crisis and you're in your emotions, it makes it really hard for you to navigate that moment or that space because you're in the midst of it. But when you have someone on the outside looking in, they're able to say, but did you see that over there in the corner? Or did you notice that right there? For therapists, it's usually behaviors that or thought patterns or feelings that show up that you may not be aware that is there. And it is
Mm-hmm.
that moment that you see, oh, wait a minute, I didn't even notice that about myself. Because what happens is that when you live with yourself, you develop habits and behaviors and feelings and thoughts, and it becomes almost second nature. It's almost you're doing it like subconsciously. You don't
Mm-hmm.
even realize you're doing it. And people see it, but you
Yeah.
don't. And so sometimes with a therapist, the purpose of the therapist is to show you in a mirror. Like, look, you need to stand there and you need to see you first and work on these things within you before you try to go and engage with someone else. And in relationships, that is, identifying where the breakdown is first. And when people go
Mm,
into relationships, they fall in love with the idea, not the reality. The reality is it requires a lot of work. It's just like any other plant. There are those plants that don't need a lot of work.
yeah.
So they can, you can sit them in a corner. They need a little bit of sun. You only have to water them once a week. You can let them go. There are relationships that are like that. But then there are some
Mhm.
relationships that require a lot of attention, a lot of work. And that's when you do a lot of communicating. That's when you do a lot, pay attention. That's when you delve in and really put in the effort. But people want things the way that they want them. They don't want to compromise. They see compromise as a weakness. No, that's not. They see um, if I give a little bit, then I'm being taken advantage of. That's not. That's not what it is all about. And that's why a lot of relationships break up. That's why a lot of
Mhm.
people go through a lot of unnecessary hurt because they're not willing to do the work. They just want this. And I mean, that's what even me, I had to work on me. I was the because I was so insecure with myself, I was the sugar mom. I paid for love. So in the relationship, I was the person who was the breadwinner, and I would work 2 and 3 jobs just so that I could make an individual happy while neglecting myself. And so I was the person who everyone loved to be with because it could benefit. I had my own space, but I never got to go on a vacation. I never benefited from working 3 jobs. I never had those things because in my mind, I saw myself as not being good enough. And so I
Mhm.
overcompensated with material things. It wasn't
Right.
until I had to do my own self work that I had to realize, no, you are good enough. But you don't see yourself that way. And
And
I
you
was
see that in
comparing
a lot of
myself
people.
to other people. And that was the
Like,
biggest issue is that I was looking at other diamonds and other stones, and I was trying to compare myself to them. And I'm uniquely me. And I
yeah,
had to really appreciate me being myself.
right. That's not something that is, especially lately. I feel like it's not something that is as welcome because when we show up as ourselves, it's picked apart and ridiculed and questioned. I was on a show last week, and the young lady was speaking about Beyonce, and she was debating whether this person that we see is really who she is compared to when she was a child. And my thing was, I was like, well, again, that was her parents thinking that this image of who she was more important, and they had control over her. The same as a lot of other celebrities, and then they blossom into this being of a person, and you like, well, who is this person? I don't think that's real. That ain't real. It
Right.
ain't, whereas though her sister is allowed, Solange is allowed to be creative and free and self-righteous and deep. Whereas though we want to box and pigeonhole her. And once she started going outside of that box, we started ridiculing her. And I see that in our everyday relationships. Like when people show up as themselves, we debate it. We mock it, we ridicule it because it's not who we want them to be or we saw them as. And it
But
really is, I think, detrimental to how we grow. Because
but
even the
that's
people around
partly
you don't respect your growth.
but that's partly because we're not taught that it's okay to be yourself. That's
You
that
gotta be everything
we're
but
conditioned to believe that it's okay to be how society wants you to be, and that may
fake
go
it till you
against
make it.
who you are. And I think that that's the biggest issue is that a lot of times when we've been conditioned and taught that being you isn't okay.
Or
So
enough.
when you show up as yourself, then everyone, it's like, okay, who is this person? But you've been
Mm-hmm.
putting on this facade, and it hurts. It's like putting on a shoe 2 sizes too small. You're gonna try to cram your
Especially when you shrunk yourself into that that old person to appease all these people. That's
And
when
it
I feel
becomes
like it hurts
difficult
people
to
the
do it.
most. Right.
It's very difficult to do that. And that was the biggest issue with me is that, this being blue is who I am authentically. But because I was bound up, then I was unable to be my true self. And it started to cause me emotional duress. And so
Yeah.
it was at that point when I had to decide, who do I love more, them or me? And what I realized is that by loving me, I was able to truly liberate myself. I think a lot of people are walking around and they're slaves to themselves. They're in their own private prisons and they don't know how to just break away and break out. And they have the keys to it. They don't even have to use a key. The door is open, but they don't believe it's open. They believe that it's locked and they believe that they can't exist outside of that box. And you really can't.
And even from my personal experience, it does happen because I allow certain things to put me in a box or shield me or cover me or camouflage me. And I remember it really was during the pandemic that I found that sense of, I don't want to say sense of self, but that sense of self was though it was nobody in my house that I had to pretend for or put on airs for, even, in my workplace environment. I have to dress how I deem comfortable. Now, still understanding what is, respectable, what is, appropriate or professional. I have to still be myself. I have to still do some things. And something has happened to me throughout the pandemic because we were and I feel crazy even talking about it, but I was talking to a friend last night about it. But there was a so prior to the pandemic, I had one of my feelings came out. So right when the lockdown was coming, if we was only supposed to be in it for a month, and my appointment was set for a month later. Well, that turned into a whole year, now 2 years, and I have been going through some dental issues and slowly trying to repair things. One, because it's super damn expensive now. Um, but I wasn't used to the aesthetic of like a lisp. I have a lisp now that is really, you know, driving me crazy. But trying to figure out why was I feeling so uncomfortable with myself and I've never felt those ways before. And understanding that, slight little changes can make you feel uncomfortable about yourself, or but at the same time I was balancing that off by what other people thought of me.
But you
And
know
it
what?
really was not my norm. I was so far outside of my norm and my comfort zone because I never really cared what people thought prior to that. So I didn't understand why now I would start feeling that way.
But the
Or
funny thing is, and this is what happens with a lot of individuals, is that they're so self-conscious about themselves, they assume that that other people outside of themselves are even aware, and they usually aren't. Like, one of the big. This is why I praise theater, and having directors is because they see you. They when they're looking at you, they're giving you directions. Especially like last year when I was in a lot of plays, I wasn't aware of a lot of my like little quirks and things of that nature. But someone that is in it, like a director, usually is really paying attention to how you move and how you talk, articulation. If you have an
right.
accent, and I wasn't aware of a lot of the things that I was doing, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And one of the directions was the audience doesn't know that you made a mistake until you tell them you made a
Now you
mistake
make it noticeable.
and you make it noticeable. And that was profound to me because that was something that spoke to my life because I was always pointing out the flaws. So I was like, oh, I did this there, I did this there. And when I would get feedback, many people would be like, well, I didn't even know. I had no idea.
Right.
Like before, that was a revelation just now to me because I wasn't even paying attention to that about you. You know what I mean? And so it's like those things that in therapy, they're able to point that out. Like, you are aware of you because you live with you. You know you better than anyone else, but you may not be aware that people aren't paying that much attention to those things that you're paying attention to. It may be something completely different. So you may say, well, it's the list that they're paying attention to, but it's not. It has nothing to do with it. They have something that
So at
is
the
completely
end
that you're
of
not even aware of.
so at some point I was having throughout the year you get observations from your administrators or principals staff. And I remember my principal, she had a meeting with me and she was very intrigued with how I was teaching theater. And I treat, and what you said is why I do theater, why I still do theater, and why I love to teach theater, because theater is such a platform. Unlike many of the other art forms, you can't do it by yourself. If you think of all the other platforms in music, you can write, sing, arrange, produce, do the instruments all by yourself, and then play a track at a performance. All the other art forms you create on your own. Theater is the only process where there's moments where you have to get it on your own, but the most of it is ensemble work. Even if it's a one-man show, you still have to relate to your director and your lighting and the venue and all. You still have to communicate and be with. And for that reason, theater is such a platform that teaches you valuable life skills. And it really is why I teach it. And my notes on it was, she was trying to find she said she was trying to find the theater in my teaching. She's like, I just thought you give them a script, they learn the lines, you give them costumes and put them on stage. And I said, that's what it looks like. But theater is teaching you how to be professional, how to be on time, how to be, punctual, how to be consistent. Because in theater, you have to be consistent. You have to give the same show because you have a different audience every night, and they still deserve the show that the director directed. How things, you have to move that prop piece off the same way every time, or you're gonna run into another stage crew member. Like it's a lot of repetitiveness, but it's also teaching you how to be consistent and how to show up in real life. And most theater people, believe it or not, even if some of us don't show it, we have a lot of restraint and a lot of kind of boxed in. We're very regimented. We don't like change because we're used to that repetition. Whereas though you have somebody in TV or film that's used to playing to an actual audience or not having any audience, they have a little bit more freedom in how they express themselves. But, it really, I'm glad you got to experience it on this end of your life or this part of your life, because most people don't understand it. And probably because your line of work, you see it faster, but a lot of people don't understand how really dedicated and how skilled theater actors, specifically theater actors, are, because it takes a lot of work to be able to put on a show and not fall into like a black space with it. But I really, this subject matter altogether, the theme of it is really showing up as yourself. But how do the others deal with that? It's easy to say show up as yourself, but if you've never been introduced to yourself, or if you've done all the work to push that self so far down, it's really hard for you to reveal that. And we don't give each other that type of grace or space to really be who we are. We say it, but if I really showed you who I was, would you really be there? Would you stay? Would you judge me? Well, we say that a lot, but we really don't want people to show up as themselves. I think that's hard for people to even imagine. But how do you do that? How do you consistently do that for people? Create that safe space in your relationships and and your circles?
I think that one, you got to be willing to, you got to be open to doing it. I think that a lot of times, again, like I said before, I think we have a kind of skewed idea about what relationships entail. And so, the way that we see it on TV is, we like the same things. And it's always going to be you agreeing with me. We're always going to have a good day. It's never going to be any issues. We don't see it as any disagreements. We don't see it as, you being an individual and not liking some things that I like, or me not liking some things that you like. So that's not what's always seen, you know. And the reality is that's what relationships are like. A lot of times relationship is work. It requires a lot of work. I think when I've been in my relationship for 20 years, it was not easy. I think that, and it's
In
always
our
evolving.
relationship,
Huh?
you've been in our relationship for 20 years.
When I didn't know you had that problem. I mean, when did you start taking those illicit substances? What drug is that? Fentanyl? You want? I didn't know that's what you even. That's what you want, damn.
Drug free,
Um,
baby. Only drug in
but
this.
yeah,
I'm fighting to get out this body is sugar.
you said the only what you said the only thing you getting in what you call it booger sugar. Ah, gee.
No, I don't do those. I don't do those illicit substances.
No, but I'm saying it requires a lot of work to be in a long-term relationship, and it changes, it evolves. The stuff that who I was 5 years ago is completely different from who I am now, and who I was 15 years ago. So you got to be willing to evolve, and the relationship changes. The things that you probably would not tolerate then, you do. You're like, okay. One of the biggest thing is being clingy. I'm not a clingy person. I used to be. I used to be the type of person who want to be up under my man all the time. Oh, where you going at? Who you with? Competing and comparing. 20 years in, you look. If they like you, I love them. Look, please have them take your ass on the weekends. You look every time you say, "Oh, I'm a ball." Look,
That's not
borrow his
how
ass.
relationship works.
Right, borrow his ass for 2 weeks so that I can go out here and have a good time and enjoy my life. Because guess what? It requires that. You need that time to yourself. So I think that when the reality of what a true relationship entails, when people start to really embrace that and understand that, then they'll say, "Oh, you know what? I've been going about it wrong the whole time, or I've been misinformed at how to go about it." Because and even in friendships, I don't get along with I don't get along with my friends all the time. I don't agree with everything that their philosophies about life or the things that they do. I'm not judging them. I'm not going to do it. But at the same token, I still love them for who they are. Now, does that mean that I'm gonna go out here and if one of my friends is a gang member, they could be a gang member. I won't be out there gang banging with them. That doesn't stop me from having a conversation with them. That doesn't stop me from showing up for them when I need to show up for them. But what it does mean is that, okay, you know what? When they on that tip, I'm going to go this way. And they understand it because I've already communicated. Look, when you out here
But
and you doing
that's a mutual understanding.
yeah.
I'm finding it difficult to be in relationships with people who have that grace and that mercy for people. And without it being a struggle for them. Like it really is a struggle for people to let you be who you are.
I
And
think we
just
make a lot of stuff complicated. It's
right.
not as complicated as we make it. You know what? I think for me, I used to tell the guys I would date, I told my baby father this. You go after what you want. You put in the work for what you want. If you want your garden to produce fruit, you're going to nurture it to produce fruit. But if you expect that garden to produce anything, you have to actually put the work in. If you're not going to put the work in, it's not going to do anything. And that's relationships. If you're not willing to put the work in, it's not going to go anyplace. And
Right.
so, and you got to be willing to do that. And if you're the type of person who you give up at any sign of an issue, Now, I'm not saying that you stick around for bullshit and toxic stuff, but it does require some work and it requires some communication. You can't just assume that people know how you feel about things. You got to be willing to say, oh, this makes me uncomfortable or this upset me. You can't assume people read your mind. That's just
And
not
no,
happening.
the flip side of that, when people present that information to you, you can't take that personal.
No.
You don't even have to change who you are, but just realize you may be losing that person because you're unable to compromise or be understanding that maybe your behavior or your actions is causing somebody else harm.
Yes. And you gotta be open and understanding of that. You know what I mean? Like me being who I am, I know that I'm I'm bangy, I cuss a lot,
This guy,
raw, um, flirtatious. I'm a lot of things that may make people uncomfortable. And so for me, it is when I'm being my authentic self, I have to realize that people have to get to understand and know me, and they don't. And I may be a lot in the beginning.
and
And
that is
so they
their
may not know
issue.
how to deal with that. And
But
so
you're
I have to
not,
be open.
and I don't take that back from you. But you're not a lot. You're exactly as much as you are.
Right.
I am
But what
too much for you. That means you aren't enough for
but
you.
but even still, I have to recognize that their interpretation of me is that I'm a lot. So I don't scale back who I am, but I have to be aware and conscious of the fact that, oh, you know what, when this individual is around, I have to maybe preface what I'm doing, or I may have to just check in with them and see, oh, are you okay? You know, and that's just me being considerate because I can go in and say, I don't give a fuck about what they think or how they feel. But if I'm trying to build a working relationship with individuals, I have to consider how they feel. Now, it doesn't mean I have to take on their feelings, but I do have to be considerate of them. And so for
Right.
me, that's where the communication comes in. And as time progresses, they'll realize, you know what? Oh, that's just Bleu. That's just who he is, and that's how he is. Is he that way with everyone? No, he's that way with people he's comfortable with. And they recognize it that, oh, you're only this way with me. You're not that way with everyone else. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's something that I've had to understand about myself. People's perception of who they want me to be versus who they think I am is two different people. But at the same time, I have to maintain who I am. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not the biggest sociable person I know, but I'm very cordial. I do speak. You speak to me and I don't turn my back to you. Like I'm not that person. But people, and I'm finding that in our communities and our circles, people want you to be something that they're not strong enough being. They want you to be the pinnacle and the example of something that they're struggling to be. And it's not even a reality. That's so it's so I want to throw out some examples of this happening in our pop culture, spaces. I'm really, and I feel uncomfortable saying it because there's so many different factors, but you have a Kanye
Mm-hmm.
who obviously and admittedly has some things going on that with mentally, but perception is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making me uncomfortable because it feels like we get angry at people for having mental disorders or mental breakdowns or mental trauma or struggles. It's like we get mad at them for being that. Like I hate you almost. But I know it's a reflection, is a response to the behavior and not necessarily to the symptoms. I understand that. But I'm not even willing to see the origin or the symptoms. I am only concerned with the behavior or the result of. And then it's this venom, this you can't say on this one end, oh my God, the things that this person has been through, oh my God, like it's just I wouldn't be able to deal with that. And then hate them on the other hand for for reacting to it in a way that is not professional or not.
I
I'm
think
just
it's
confused at
important.
how to feel about not Kanye, but the people around him or the people who speculate about him.
But I think, for me, it is, I think a lot of people get caught up on the what and they don't pay attention to the why and the how.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? And so it's like, you see the behavior, but you don't understand the backstory as to why this is this. And
Mhm.
so even with Kanye, there's a lot of other things that people aren't taking into consideration.
Yeah.
And so that is some
Mhm. Go ahead.
that is important because when you start to get that backstory, then you're able to get a better understanding. You're able
Mhm.
to, it changes the way that you approach it because you have more
Right.
information. And the more information you get, the more you may change the way that you see things. I think that a lot of people, that we really don't know a lot. I think what we get is the media's perception of Kanye, but there's a lot of stuff that he said that may be interpreted as hurtful, but we don't understand why he's doing the things that he's doing. We don't know his
Mhm.
hurt. We don't know any of the stuff that he's dealing with. We only get a
And people
limited amount
scared
of
of them. They
information,
just
and
want to
we
comment.
want to we want to build on that limited amount of information. And we see that with a lot of things. We have conversations about a lot of stuff that goes on, and we're really limited in what we know. And we think that because it shows up on social media, that is it. But there is so much stuff that happens outside of social
That we
media.
don't
And
see.
so that plays into it. And it's like what you get limited information, a lot of
Mm.
limited information. We're privy to so much. We're not privy to as much as we think we are. And even the people, the individuals that provide us with information, the information that they provide us with is usually convoluted. So it's not, their interpretations. It's a whole lot of things that they've added to it. Some of it is not even factual, but we take it as fact. And so that's why I'm a big person on digging deeper and having communication, actually talking to the horse's mouth instead of the horse's ass.
Right.
Go to the source, if you can. And if you can't, your opinion is your opinion, but that's what it is. That's where it stays at. It's just an opinion. You don't know as much as you think you do. And even in relationships, I think a lot of people have assumptions about what relationships, especially, what gay relationships look like, or what, if you've never been in a gay relationship, you don't know. You have no clue. And
Yeah.
until you get into one and you've actually sustained one for a long period of time, you need to keep it at that. You don't know.
Mm. But
And
it
even
but
if a person tells you it's theirs, that's their relationship. That's not all relationships. So you can't use their relationship to say this is how it is in every situation and scenario. That's not how it's going to be.
but it's always it also is showing how we and why we deal with our own family and loved ones and friends the way we do. This whole thing of I only want good vibes, no low vibrations around me. It's saying in so many words, if you got a problem, keep that shit to yourself. And I understand it because sometimes you're so filled, but it's the wrong messaging that we send out there because had this issue with Kanye or Kanye's loved ones, and you can tell he doesn't have a lot of loved ones, had they did this in the beginning when we saw morsels of it, whether he was, because when he spoke out against Bush, everybody, yeah, Kanye, oh yes, he doesn't like black people, yes. But that type of outburst, uncontrolled outburst, that's that's not how you do it.
But
That's
then the
not
thing
how.
about it is that is what the reality is that he's an entertainer. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so to be unpredictable, that is a part of being an artist, to a degree. You're
But
not
it
supposed
but
to
it's
be.
definitely spilling over into reality in many cases because I understand it, but at some point, where's the line?
But see, that's where I feel like, with him, I think that what we are seeing is one, a lack of education. I think a lot of people are basing it as it's just mental health, it's mental health, and it may not just be mental health. It's a lot of other things that may be um,
Mhm.
um, in there. There may be some mental health. There may be a lot of things, but we don't know that. And so we just assume it's mental health, and it may not be. There may be a lot of other things that we are not aware of. And so
Mhm.
I think we should be careful with how we are looking at things and our perceptions and our judgments because we really don't know. You really don't
Mhm.
know. And I think when it comes down to him, I think that if you were to actually have a conversation with him outside of what's being aired on social media, you will find that there are some other elements that they're not putting out there about him.
And you hear that from people. I think I just saw an interview with Yolanda Adams, and she said, "I like the person I know, and the person that you are seeing being in soundbite form, that's not who I know, and I've gotten to know who he is." And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that, and this, I don't try to pressure people or I'm not pushing people, but it is weird to me that we are in spaces where people are more comfortable with the version of you that is not real in terms of discussing it and taking it apart and picking at it than they are with simply saying, you know what? Nate is not an asshole. He's never been an asshole to me. But we've all been in that hot seat where someone had a perception of us and they carried that bone around and that becomes who you are. That becomes your character. And I
That's
fought
if you
that
take
with
that on, and that's very important that you recognize what's theirs and what's yours. You don't have to wear anybody else's clothes.
Mhm.
What they see you as, but that doesn't necessarily have to be who you are.
But at some point you have to grow in that and you have to learn that because you'll find yourself in a space trying to defend yourself. And I went through, especially with I think having this type of platform, I opened myself up to a certain level of criticism because I was having conversations that people wasn't used to me having. A lot of stuff that I use this platform to really talk about the stuff that I would never talk about in mixed company. And I
Hmm.
had this platform to be able to do that. And that brought about a certain,
It's like your
perception of who I
diary,
am. Right. And that's
right?
really what this series has been for me. It's been, if I go through these series, you'll see like evolutions of who I was and who I am and where I'm going. But at the same time, for a couple years there, I found myself defending how other people who don't know me felt about me and talked about me and spread about me. Like I found but had I heard something like, you know, differentiating what's yours and what's theirs in terms of what you feel about yourself is very important, I think, especially for children and people struggling with mental struggles. That needs to be said more,
Um,
because people will have their feelings of you and don't even know you. They just saw, it's like a case study. You saw this, I picked up this random case study. I don't know any of the parties involved. I'm just reading what one person decided to write down about everybody else, and I'm believing that and all the
right.
factors. And that's so weird to me that we do that in real life.
I mean, but is it? I think that I mean that's what we like. For me, society has always been based upon judgment. That you're always judging. Um, um, we're superficial. We don't go beyond the surface. We
But
stay
that
at the
that
surface.
it's you would see that if that's either who you are or elements of who you are. My struggle has been I've never been a judgmental person. Like I don't look at people and automatically pick them apart or second guess everything they say or question it. I was the person who was the exact opposite. I believe who people showed me. Like that's who you are. Okay,
Mm. Well, I
that's who
know that
you
I
are.
struggled with. Um, I had judgments. I had a lot of judgment.
Mhm.
I was always, I was the underdog, and I was always judging the haves, the people that have all of the wealthy, the bullies. I was the person who, um, I had a vendetta against those individuals because I didn't understand them, and because I had been hurt and I didn't understand why. But as I started to work with individuals that were the bullies, that were they were disconnected from, you know, um, the poor people and things of that nature, I was able to shift my way of thinking because
Mhm.
I was now able to, I had a different point of reference. Before, my point of reference, my worldview was limited. Now it evolved because I was able to work with and experience those individuals. So it shifted, and it went from me judging them to now empathizing and saying, "Oh, you know what? I can work with this person, or I'm able to. I might not like something that
Mhm.
they do or how they may view things or their philosophy about things, but I can have a conversation with them and we can come to a common ground." That was
Right.
difficult for me to do before. And I
Why
think
was
as
it
you evolve
difficult?
and you do a lot of self work, it makes it easier for you to work with others. But that requires you to do the work on yourself first. And that's
So
a
why was
difficult
it
thing to
difficult
do.
though?
Which is that,
Why was it difficult?
well, because what happens is that you have to, when you working on yourself, you have to go to those parts of yourself that's ugly. You have to go to those parts of yourself that requires a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of deep digging. And you may not be built for that. You may not even have the skills to go into those areas. And that's when you
Mhm.
ask for the assistance. But you have to be willing to do the self work. And a lot of us say, well, oh yeah, I'm working on me, but they don't really have a true understanding of what that entails. And they're not willing to do it, and they're not willing to be patient with others who are doing it for themselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then we want to be in love, and and we don't even understand what love looks like.
Yeah. Like
It
it
don't look
happens. I
like
see
it
that
doesn't look
happening a
like
lot more.
starbursts and sunny skies and rainbows and moon rays all the time.
Right.
Sometimes love looks like, look, you need to get your shit together because it's really you're in a stagnant space.
But I see that a lot.
Sometimes,
I saw that a lot in my own life. I saw that a lot in other people's journey when they're trying to find that space for themselves, and everybody around them is, almost ridiculing them for taking that time for themselves. And it's because they haven't done it, or they're too afraid to take time off and miss things, or not be in or know everything that's going on. And that's a strong thing to do when you can remove yourself to work on yourself, to grow yourself. And a lot of
mhm.
people just, I don't think it is impossible for everybody, but I really think that people just, they're comfortable with just the basics. And that I don't feel comfortable saying it, but I think it's very true.
But that isn't really basic. You get what I'm saying? Like what's rich to you may not be rich to me. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, for me, I'm believe it or
Well,
not,
I
I'm
meant
very
like the basics. So if for me, who I'm being isn't my full capacity,
mhm.
people are more comfortable with that basic form of you than the person who could outshine the whole room.
But the funny thing is that I believe in universally we all can shine. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just think that some people don't believe they shine as bright as they actually can. They
Hmm.
diminish their light. And so, and me, I'm all about embracing who you are and shining as bright as you are willing to shine. I think that that's really important that you realize that are you willing to shine that bright? Are you willing to go to that extra step? Because that can be a very uncomfortable space, to be in that element where that you're drawing that much attention, that you're garnering all these eyes on you, all these people that potentially could be judging. That's a very scary space to be in at times for a lot of individuals. And it requires a lot of self care and being self awareness. And I don't think that I think it requires, I think we need to do more with self-care, and that we need to teach young people, adults, how to do better with themselves and how to work with themselves. That it's okay to work with yourself. And that before
And
you
I
start
hear
to
that. I hear
engage
that,
with
but
other
those
people,
adults have to first do that for themselves.
right? And before you start to engage with other people, before you get into these relationships, before you start doing, going on, developing these friendships, working in these environments, that you do the work, that you actually work on yourself first. Because you do a lot more harm when you go out there and you just doing the most.
It's winging it. I think that is it's a very interesting statement to say because we've all been taught to fake it till you make it, push through, fight through it, deal with it, let it go. And nobody is saying how to actually, invest that time in yourself because people just so quick to, they don't want to miss nothing. I don't want to miss life. I don't want to miss my friend's 40th birthday. I don't want to miss, that baby. I don't want to miss that relationship. I don't want to miss the potential that this person might be the best thing. But if you haven't done the work, everything that you want to be a part of is going to fail. And you're not going to look good. It's going to get worse for you. Or you're going to be in a self-destructive pattern because you're not willing to take the time for you. And that time may be different. It may be a year for this person. It may be a whole 10 years for another person. But putting in the time for you is valuable. I walked away from, I'm not saying I ended a lot of relationships, but I took the time for me. I stopped seeing people. And that was hard for people because people were used to me making the time and sacrificing, like me doing the sacrifice.
And for
And when I
me, it
stopped
is,
doing that, it just wasn't, people were not happy.
it's very important you said that. I think that it's for a lot of times, even with myself, before I took that sabbatical, I let people know that it wasn't about that. That this is not a you thing, this is a me thing. And that, I don't want you to take this personally, but I need it for myself. You get what I mean? And that's important. It's important that we're able to articulate that we need a moment and that it's okay to take those moments for yourself, that you're not villainized because you're taking a break, and I think that that's where that communication is important, that you should be willing to say, okay, look, I need a moment to myself. And also for those individuals, recognize that, are you able to be patient with this? Are you able to stick it through? If it takes you 10 years, are you still going to be the same person 10 years later? Are you willing to, are you going to be my friend then? Because I may need that moment. I may need that 10 years to heal. I may need that whole
Facebook page the other day, a friend of mine, and she's been going through these moments where she'll just disappear, or she'll just, in the midst of something, back out and don't finish or don't communicate. And I noticed when I posted it live on her Facebook page when she made the statement. I said it's not about people not respecting your feeling, but you have people that love you and support you. So you tell our boyfriend that we're doing the show.
Hi.
Tell our boyfriend that we're doing the show.
I've been trying to tell him that he's on a show, but he wants to sing. And he is committed to singing.
That's what it is. I get it.
He do want attention. I'm just about to put him on a podcast and tell him to take the mic because he is moaning his tail off. He's been singing his other song like.
But we have to like I was saying, we have to communicate, and not that we need to do a press release whenever we going through something, but share with the people that love you because it makes it difficult. And kind of the point of this is how we deal with our friends when they're going through struggles, because it may be the very thing that you need. Like I know, I have a friend right now that's really going through some tough times, but I know when to push back and I know when to call. I know when I'm learning. I'm gonna say I'm learning to call when I need to, and when I haven't heard from that person in a minute, My friend right now, he lost his mom, and I'ma still send a message every now and again until he feels strong enough to pick up the phone. But communicate, just simply, and just a text back, like I'm not feeling right now, and that's asking a lot of somebody that's going through something, but it's asking very little on the side of a person who is concerned for you, who wants to love you, and especially somebody who is consistently there for you. I think we have to learn how to go into our bubbles and go into this self-care mode, because it's, you know, what if something happens? You leave these people with all these, but I wish I would have. I wish they would have. And it's a lot of unresolved things that you're leaving people with you know, when you're not communicating. I've just learned to be very direct in my communication. When something I don't like something, I learn how to say I don't like it. When it's hurting me, I've learned how to say it's hurting me. And I just think we have not been given the proper tools to be able to do that. And I don't blame that on the school system. I don't necessarily blame it on parents and family, because if you have never been given it, how can you give it to somebody else? At some point you have to get it in order to give it.
And
So
all, mhm. And another thing, people be okay with saying no.
yes, yes.
Say, look, sometimes you can't do it. Just say, I can't do it. No, I can't do it.
Mhm.
If you don't have it, if you can't do it, it's okay. If you don't know it, you don't know it. You don't have to fake it till you make it. You could just be authentically and honestly yourself and just say, look, this is not me. I
Right.
don't understand it. I don't get it. It's okay. It's okay to be human. There is no such thing as perfection. No one's seen it. No one's ever seen it. Even the concept of perfection is flawed. So just stop trying to be something perfect, because your interpretation of it is going to be flawed.
And this is specifically to Black people, and I'm saying it. We are not than supernatural beings. I know that's the picture that we paint, but we're just as much as human, just as much human as everybody else. And it's
Yes.
interesting. I had went to this workshop um, that a friend had, and Mama Cheryl was there, and she said it's nothing wrong with the perception of being a superhero, but even a superhero has to go home at night and go to sleep and recharge or re-energize themselves. Be okay with that and understand when you need it and communicate it. Like, look, I can't do this project. Instead of you taking it on and then,
Killing yourself.
yeah, or destroying relationships because you just backed out and didn't say anything. You gotta really have to learn that communication thing. And I don't know why that's something that's been tapping me on my shoulder, and it's been a part of my communication for this amount of time. But it really does. It has been welcoming itself into my communication and my speech and my situations for a minute now. And it really is important to me that we learn effective communication. It will save a lot of us stress, depression. Not that it's going to prevent any wrong or struggle from happening, but it's going to soften the blows a lot of the things that you're going through if you effectively communicate. And there will be people who just don't like your no. They don't like it. They don't understand it. They want what they want because it's their whatever. But you have to be strong enough to say no. It's not feeding me anymore. It's not supporting me anymore, and I need to get out of this. Or whatever I'm going through will only make this worse. So let me remove myself. And being strong enough to say no. I was definitely a person who stayed too long at the party, and that
Mhm.
sometimes destroyed relationships, more relationships, as if I would have just backed out in the beginning or just said no from the beginning. But I would just press on and do it and do it and do it, and not understanding what toll it was really taking on me. Trying to be
Absolutely.
there and trying to be available for something that I wasn't in. But
Right.
does he have something to say? Speak up, sir. Give him a mic.
Uh,
Tell him we'll do no backseat drivers over here. You got to get in the front seat.
right.
Bring him to the community conversation. I'm gonna give him a whole 15 minutes on his own.
Yeah.
This has been I don't know why these topics come to me the way they do. Or I mean, part of it is I'm watching people go through things. I'm going through some growth, but I don't know why it's on my heart to like talk about it and get it out in the air. But I'm just seeing a lot of stuff that I don't like. I'm seeing a lot of stuff that I don't like how it's being handled or the lack of it being taken care of. And it's just a sad space that I feel like we're in as human beings. As you say,
Right.
we're all human. I just feel like it's a really space of weird space that we're in as people.
Right.
I don't know. Another thing that I don't like is these time things that Marnie just keep making up.
He said 5 minutes. He want us done.
Right. You date on your time, not on my time.
Mm-mm-mm.
That don't have nothing to do with me.
Ooh,
This is
I
just my
mean,
time. What
did,
show do
did
you
you
have coming up?
did you close the?
What's the name of the show?
Ooh, we back to Skyline.
That don't have nothing to do with you. Tell Skyline to find another time slot. Stop piggybacking off the
Are we
artist.
still on the air?
We are still on the air.
Oh Lord. Oh, y'all talk about me. Shit.
We just finished talking about communication. Communication. Communicate with me. But
I
other than that,
mean,
we have a show that's returning to be exposed, Skyline, with Mark, and I forgot the other young lady's name. Mark is really big in his homeless activism. He does a lot of school drives and homeless drives and feeding the homeless. So definitely tune into that show 5 minutes into my show. Yeah, this has been another edition of the Artist Exchange. I don't know if this is my confessional or my testimonial hour, but it's definitely been a very I think I need to talk these things out sometimes because sometimes it really helps me how I deal with my everyday relationship. You know,
right,
dealing with somebody just going through a mental struggle or they're showing the signs of uh, trauma, it is very difficult. Sometimes you don't want to hear it. Sometimes you don't want to be around it. But as a friend and a loved one, do what you can to support that person. Whether it be suggesting a therapist, whether it be, listen. Sometimes just listening to somebody is more medicine for them than actual therapy. Um, any closing remarks, Blue Waters?
right.
Are you high? What's going on?
No, I'm not. I wish, but I don't partake. So,
No, I said, do you have any closing remarks about the topic?
um, no. I think I said a lot today, so I don't have much to say. I'm kind of distracted.
Please don't be doing anything inappropriate. This is a wholesome show.
I'm not a wholesome person.
You are a hozo.
You are too.
Oh, my stomach hurts. But we'll be back
It
next
takes
week.
one to know one.
We'll be back next week. We're gonna start doing a number of interviews with some of the cast members.
I can't wait. I can't wait to do those interviews.
If you thought I was him, can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm down here on the computer phone and it's up here. You thought I was him, open it up in less than a month now. This has been a year-long process, and I have never wanted to finish a show. I want this to be over with and done. But it's been so rewarding. It's been so fun, featuring Marsha Allen, Patrick Bean Jr., Noah Salas, Calvin D. Tucker. Brother Calvin is in this morning. And Eddie Satterfield. Brother Calvin is in this. And anytime, Mark, anytime. I don't get to make it to your rallies, but keep sending them. And at some point, I'm not going to be in rehearsal. This year is going to be over, and I'm going to be able to come out this stuff. But look for our social media, the Artist Exchange, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm clearing the Twitter out. I had a lot of people that were on my friend list that turned into OnlyFans members, and I'm slowly figuring out who is who and moving them on out, because I don't want to be watching that on my feed. But again, Blue Waters, where can they find you at on social media?
Erotic Blue Waters. Erotic, EROTIC, Blue, BLEU Waters. On Instagram, Blue Waters. On Facebook, BLEUWATERS. And you'll see me on here. The Artist Exchange.
That's it, y'all. Peace out. Be safe. Come on by the studio this weekend, 4709.
Yeah.
Come on by. We got some wine. We got wine. We got some liquors.
I'm not coming to that. Y'all trying to get people booze.
Come on, I like to loosen them up before they shop. So peace out, people. The next up is the Skyline Radio Show.
See y'all. I'm gonna call you back.